California Senator Alex Padilla, a Democrat. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Absolutely. Good to be here on set with you.
On set, not being chased in the hallways. I'm
Exactly.
sure it's much more comfortable here. About just the politics of this, the way voters see Trump versus Biden right now about handling the issue of immigration. 52% support Trump, believe he's doing a better job, versus 41% for Biden right now. When you look at that, that's pretty much consistent with other national polls. How much of a political risk is this taking this action at this time for the president?
I honestly don't think it's a risky move. You know, there's that old adage, the best politics is good governance. This is good governance. You know, the numbers when it comes to polling on immigration, I think, are also misleading because immigration is so complex. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about and debating, you know, how best to better secure the border. You know, that's one element of it. What we talked about yesterday is not people who may or may not be coming to the United States. We're talking about a universe of people who have been in the United States. At least 10 years is the criteria announced by the president, but really on average more than 23 years. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are our co-workers and clearly members of families along with United States citizens. That's why it's the mixed status family sort of descriptor that is being targeted here. People who have been here for many, many years, have been working, paying taxes, raising families, et cetera, and are American in every sense except for the piece of paper. It's best in the best interest, not just for them, their families and their communities, but for us as a country and our economy to give them these legal protections and a way to work lawfully and improve the economy.
I mean, the question is, of course, does this change how voters view about his taking some of these actions, including some Hispanic voters? This, if you look at exit polls from 2020 until the current public polling right now, Biden versus Trump, 65-32 in the 2020 exit polls among Hispanic voters, 52-47 now, public polling. Why is Biden struggled with Hispanic voters?
Again, polls are polls. The only poll that really counts is in November. There was a lot of people whose knees were rattling before the 2020 general election, and President Biden did extremely well with
Your knees aren't rattling now?
No, we just have work to do because we have a compelling story to tell, not just on immigration and the thoughtfulness of yesterday's announcement, but on other issues that Latinos care about, like the economy, like public safety, like access to health care, like addressing climate change, on and on and on. And guess what? It's showtime. We got debates coming up. We got political conventions coming up. We have the campaign outreach coming up, and we're going to see a good turnout in November.
But I mean, I hear this a lot from Democrats saying, you know, we have to message better. We have to tell the voters about what we did. And they're like, we're in June of the election year. Why hasn't that not happened yet?
Because we're still delivering. You know, we're still delivering on the work product, including yesterday's announcement. I have to tell you, having been in the room, it was so powerful to think that hundreds of thousands of families are breathing a sigh of relief and crying tears of joy because there is a pathway just to legal protections in the short term, but potentially to naturalization in the long term. That is huge. And when you really talk to people, as I do, not just around California, but as I travel the country, most people know somebody. They may think of somebody who works in the restaurant that they frequent. Maybe it's the people who are picking the fruit and vegetables that end up in our grocery stores. Maybe it's the mechanic. Maybe it's a fellow engineer. You have immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, working in so many different sectors of the economy. Most people know somebody. When you humanize it that way, a policy like yesterday makes all the sense in the world.
I want you to react to how Trump has been talking about. One of the things he's talking about is deportation, a mass deportation program for people who are here illegally. This is the crowd at his Wisconsin rally just yesterday.
We have to send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home where they belong. We have no choice. We have no choice.
They were chanting, send them back. And if you look at national polling on the issue of a program to deport all undocumented immigrants, this is from a recent poll that came out, CBS News poll, 62% favor that idea versus 38% who oppose it. Your reaction to the fact that this seems like to be an overwhelming majority?
Look, after 8 years of Trump, I'm really shocked that his core base followers would react the way they did at his rally yesterday? Of course not. But again, being out and about, talking to people, and you break down yesterday's announcement, what it really means. This is not a universe of people that are just now seeking to come to the United States or just came to the United States. These are long-term residents of the United States who happen to be undocumented. The contrast is this: under Trump, it's going to be chaos, mass detention and mass deportation, versus Joe Biden, who is securing the border. The numbers of folks approaching the border are way down in recent months because we've engaged our partner in Mexico. But in the meantime, being just compassionate to the people who have been here, been contributing to the success of our country, worked in so many critical jobs during the pandemic. Right? That service and sacrifice is not lost on the general public.
I do want to ask you about the last executive action that he took, Joe Biden did, turning away people, asylum seekers, trying to, what they say is shut down the border, taking actions that you don't like. Were you supportive of that first executive action by the president?
As you know, I had issues with the initial executive order trying to deal with the border itself.
Did he move too far to the right? And was that
I thought it was incomplete. Politically, for the first time, it was a enforcement-only strategy as opposed to a balanced strategy, which coupled enforcement with some relief. We finally saw the relief yesterday, so I'm happy about that. But the big part that's missing is engagement, not just with officials in Mexico, but other countries in Central and South America, because this migration issue is not a southern border of the United States issue. It's a hemispheric issue, which requires a hemispheric solution. Again, tell me who's going to do a better job of that post-November. I think it's President Biden all the way.
All right. Senator Alex Padilla of California, thank you so much for sharing your views.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it. Yep.